My husband, Nestor, stood anxiously outside the operating room. But he wasn't waiting for me. He was waiting for his first love. Only a wall separated us, yet it felt like an entire world. When Pamela was finally wheeled out, pale and weak, her lips quivered as she whispered softly, "Where's Sister Sabi? Why didn't she come with you?" The moment my name left her mouth, Nestor's face darkened. His voice carried a trace of disdain. "Don't worry about her. She's perfectly fine." But what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the heart now beating inside Pamela's chest was mine. The nurse pulled a white sheet over my cold, lifeless body, declaring the official end of my life. But for some reason, my soul didn't leave. Instead, I hovered above, weightless, watching everything unfold below me. I watched as the doctors worked tirelessly, their hands moving quickly to stabilize Pamela's vitals. I saw her heart begin to beat against me, heart keeping her alive. As they wheeled her out of the operating room, I was drawn toward her, unable to resist the strange pull that connected us. Nestor stood outside, pacing nervously. His brows were furrowed, and his fingers rhythmically tapped the side of his phone resting in his pocket. The moment he saw the doctor approaching, he rushed forward, his voice trembling with anxiety. "How is she?" he asked. The doctor offered a reassuring nod. The operation was successful, thanks to the timely arrival of a donor heart. Nestor let out a long breath of relief as the tension in his shoulders eased. "Do you know who the donor was?" "I'd like to thank the family," he added. The doctor shook his head. "I'm sorry, sir." The donor requested to remain anonymous. Nestor nodded slightly. "All right. Thank you." I watched this exchange silently, my non-existent chest tightening with bitter irony. If he knew that it was my heart beating in Pamela's chest, would he feel gratitude? Or would he simply be relieved that his beloved was still alive? That thought haunted me as I floated helplessly nearby. I wanted to feel nothing. But even in death, I couldn't. A hollow, self-deprecating smile tugged at my lips as I watched them wheel my covered body down the hallway. Strangely, as my corpse passed by Nestor, he suddenly turned his head, his eyes narrowing as if sensing something. But after a brief pause, he shook it off and followed Pamela into her room. Pamela remained unconscious, her breathing shallow. Nestor sat beside her bed, gently holding her hand, his forehead resting against it. The room was heavy with silence as time slipped by unnoticed. Finally, Pamela's fingers twitched and her eyelids fluttered open. Her voice was raspy, but filled with relief. "Brother Nestor," the moment her eyes met his, tears streamed down her pale cheeks. "Pommy, you're awake," Nestor exclaimed, quickly pressing the nurse call button. "I thought I'd never see you again," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Tears rolled freely as she clung to his hand, looking as fragile as glass. Nestor's eyes glistened with pain. No, everything's okay now. You'll recover." His voice was tender, his fingers lightly patting hers with affection. Watching him offer her comfort stirred something dark inside me. Yes, everything was fine for her. But what about me? What about the life I lost? The doctor soon arrived to check on her condition. "Everything looks stable," he confirmed. "You just need a few more days of observation before you can go home." After the doctor left, Pamela cautiously whispered, "Where's Sister Sabi? Why didn't she come with you?" Hearing my own name pulled me back to the present. Nestor's face immediately hardened, and his tone turned sharp. "Don't worry about her," he said coldly. "She's perfectly fine." "Oh," Pamela lowered her head, feigning innocence. But I caught the faint curve of her lips' satisfied smirk. She had intentionally mentioned me, testing his reaction like she always did. Everyone could see through her manipulations, everyone except Nestor. Later that evening, after sharing dinner with Pamela, Nestor checked the time and stood up. "I need to head home," he said softly. Pamela's face filled with panic as she struggled to sit up, her voice trembling. "Brother Nestor, I don't want to stay here alone. I'm scared." Nestor hesitated, pulling out his phone to check for any messages from me. Our conversation had gone silent 2 days ago. My final message read, I want a divorce. His cold reply had been, don't make trouble for no reason. Looking into Pamela's tear-filled eyes, Nestor sighed and finally caved in. He sent me one final message. I won't be coming home tonight. Of course he wouldn't. I had known all along. But now, I was beyond the point of caring. Seeing him agree, Pamela's lips curled into a sweet smile. I knew you wouldn't leave me alone, she whispered. Nestor stroked her hair gently, his voice warm. I really can't say no to you. As soon as he stepped out to fetch some water, Pamela's expression instantly shifted. She reached for her phone and opened a hidden WeChat account. Her fingers danced across the screen as she sent a message to a contact with no profile picture. It's all fixed. The reply came immediately. Don't worry. It's done. A cold, calculating gleam flashed in Pamela's eyes. Die and give me her heart, she whispered to herself. At least she died for a good cause. The truth hit me like a blade. Pamela hadn't simply been a passive recipient of my death, she had orchestrated it. My heart now beat inside her chest because she wanted it that way. Rage swelled inside me, but I was powerless. All I could do was float there, helpless, watching her act sweet and innocent while living my life with my heart. When Nestor returned with a thermos, he sat beside her, peeling an apple with gentle care. Yet his mind seemed elsewhere. His eyes kept drifting toward his phone, unable to focus. Suddenly, the phone rang, startling him. The knife slipped, slicing his finger, but he ignored the blood and walked toward the window to take the call. Hello? Sabi, yes, I won't be coming home tonight. What? She hasn't come back either? His face shifted slightly as uncertainty crept into his voice. I understand. Pamela saw the cut on his finger and quickly wrapped it with a handkerchief, her voice filled with concern. What's wrong? She asked sweetly. Nestor shook his head, suppressing whatever storm brewed within him. And I, floating between them like a ghost condemned to witness my own tragedy, could only watch it all unfold. Something came up at the company. I need to go. I was surprised. The call was clearly from Aunt Wang. Why was he lying? Pamela didn't seem to notice Nestor's strange behavior and simply nodded obediently. Okay, go. Nestor grabbed his suit and walked toward the door. When he reached it, he turned back, his voice soft, pretending to care. Rest well. I'll come see you tomorrow. My heart stirred with unease. Driven by instinct, I decided to follow him as he left the hospital. I needed to see where he was really going. Nestor drove with a serious expression, his brows furrowed as if something was weighing on him. At every red light, he would glance at his phone, open our chat, and sigh in disappointment when he found no reply from me. Why was he expecting me to respond? Why did he care now, after everything? He had made it clear how much he despised me. Our marriage was never meant to happen. We were never truly husband and wife. We had met in school. He was 2 years ahead of me, and once, he had saved me when I was bullied. I secretly admired him, but never dared to confess. After he graduated and joined his family's business, I thought I would never see him again, and I buried my feelings deep inside. But fate was cruel. My father fell into debt, and unable to bear the shame, he jumped to his death. My mother, devastated, soon followed. Left alone and drowning in my parents' debt, I worked tirelessly, taking a job as a hotel maid to survive. That was when I saw Nestor again. One night, while cleaning a suite, I overheard a phone call just outside the door. The drugs are ready, come quickly. The room card is in the slot. I froze. This wasn't something I should be involved in. I was ready to leave, but curiosity made me glance inside. And there he was, Nestor, unconscious, his flushed face twisted in discomfort, his long eyelashes casting shadows across his cheeks. Should I leave him like this? He once helped me. Could I just walk away? After hesitating, I picked up the room card, locked the door from inside, and cautiously approached him. Sir, wake up, I whispered, gently shaking his shoulder. His eyes fluttered open, dazed, and he called out my name, Sabrina. My heart froze. But before I could react, his expression turned hazy again. I tried to help him sit up, suggesting he get some water or take a shower, but suddenly, he grabbed my hand and pulled me down onto the bed. My world spun as I fell beneath him, trapped. His breath was hot against my skin, burning through my rationality. "Sir, please wake up," I pleaded, pushing against him, but he was lost to the drugs, his lips crashing onto mine. My mind went blank as my last thread of sanity snapped. The world spun wildly as he kissed me deeply. At some point, I heard knocking at the door, but Nestor cupped my face, whispering through his fog, "Focus." I don't know how long it lasted, but eventually, I fell into a deep, exhausted sleep. When I awoke, daylight streamed through the curtains. The memories of the night before flooded back, and fear gripped me. Nestor lay beside me, still asleep. I tried to quietly slip out of bed, but my movements stirred him awake. His eyes narrowed, trying to recall what had happened. His face darkened as the realization dawned. I stammered it was an accident, but he didn't want to hear any excuses. His voice was cold. "Wait for me outside." I bit my lip, swallowing my grievances, wondering why he treated me like this when he was the one who had lost control. A few minutes later, he emerged from the bathroom in a robe, tossing a bank card onto the coffee table. 1 million. Let's pretend nothing happened. My hands trembled as I stared at the card, my throat dry. "No need," I whispered hoarsely. "Nothing happened anyway." I left the room, my legs weak as I entered the elevator. Tears finally spilled from my eyes as I struggled to breathe. Forget it, I thought. Consider this my repayment for the favor he once did for me. I checked out of the hotel that very day, but in my panic, I forgot to take the morning after pill. Weeks later, when my period didn't come, I took a test, clinging to faint hope. The 2 red lines made my world collapse. When I went to the hospital to schedule the procedure, fate struck again. Nestor appeared, rushing by and accidentally bumping into me. My papers scattered across the floor. As he helped me pick them up, his eyes landed on the abortion form, freezing him in place. He looked up in shock, his voice shaking. "You're pregnant?" "It's none of your business," I stammered, turning to leave, but he grabbed my wrist, his tone urgent. "We need to talk." And so, fate pulled us into marriage while I carried his child. He paid off my parents' debts and gave me a place to stay, but happiness never came. Soon after the wedding, I learned about Pamela, his childhood sweetheart who had once been engaged to him. I was nothing but the woman who stole him away. Our baby became a target. Pamela's constant provocations wore me down until one day, she crossed a line I couldn't bear. She called my child a bastard, insulted me as a wretch with no parents. I tried to remain calm, but she pushed me down the second-floor stairwell. Pain shot through my body as I fell, and through my blurry vision, I saw Pamela standing above, her face twisted into a sinister smile. Then, clutching her chest, she collapsed on the floor, pretending to be the victim. When Nestor arrived at the hospital, I was lying in bed, my belly empty, our child gone. Tears streamed down my face as I looked at him, hoping for comfort, but his expression was dark as he questioned coldly, "You know Pommy has a heart condition. She can't be stressed. What did you do to her?" My voice shook as I protested. "She pushed me. Our baby is gone." But Nestor's eyes remained cold, lips tight. "Pommy is kind. She would never do such a thing. Sabrina, you've truly disappointed me." Without another word, he turned and left, never once looking back. Ever since then, the fragile thread that once connected Nestor and me completely snapped. He never touched me again, never even tried to pretend to care. His attitude grew colder, more distant, like I was nothing more than a stranger occupying space beside him. Meanwhile, Pamela continued to thrive, playing her pitiful, innocent neighbor act whenever Nestor was around, while tormenting me behind his back. She mocked me, belittled me, and whispered venomous words into my ears every chance she got, knowing full well that Nestor would never believe me over her. "Just wait and see. I'll get him back," she once whispered arrogantly, her eyes sparkling with confidence. But even in my darkest thoughts, I never imagined she would stoop so low, using such despicable means not only to steal Nestor away, but also to rip out my heart literally. I had already signed the divorce papers, ready to walk away from this hollow marriage the moment Nestor added his signature. I had planned everything. I would leave this city behind, disappear without looking back, and rebuild my shattered life far away. But Pamela had no intention of giving me that chance. One morning, she called me unexpectedly. Her voice trembled with urgency, laced with panic as she said, "Sister Sabi, something happened to Brother Nestor. He's in trouble. Please, you must go to Senua Street and wait for me." Though a small voice inside warned me something felt off, I couldn't ignore it. The mention of Nestor's name was enough to make me act without thinking. Without hesitation, I rushed to Senua Street. But the moment I arrived, I realized too late that I had walked straight into her trap. A premeditated car accident unfolded before my eyes. I don't know when Pamela had set her sights on my heart, or how she had managed to falsify the consent forms for organ donation. But for someone like me without family, without powerful connections, me disappearance meant nothing to the world. She succeeded. My body was broken. My life was taken. And my heart was ripped from my chest and placed into hers. I closed my eyes, consumed by bitter regret, as the world around me faded away. But that was not the end. My soul remained, lingering as a silent witness to everything that followed. I blinked and suddenly found myself sitting inside Nestor's car. The brakes screeched softly as he pulled into the driveway. We were home. As soon as we walked inside, Wang greeted us politely. "Sir, Madam hasn't returned yet." Nestor frowned slightly. "I see," he replied, trying to mask his growing unease. Aunt Wang remembered something then. "Sir, around 8 this morning, you received a phone call before you left." Nestor nodded absent-mindedly and signaled for her to continue her work. He turned and went straight upstairs to my room. The room was untouched, exactly as he had left it. He opened my closet, flipping through my neatly arranged clothes and untouched luggage. Everything was still there. A hint of relief crossed his face, as though reassuring himself that I hadn't truly left. Sitting on the couch, he pulled out his phone and sent me another message. "Where did you go?" I hovered beside him, watching. What was he thinking? Why did he keep messaging me? After everything, why did he suddenly care? Just as he was about to call me again, his gaze fell on my desk. A few papers were sitting, the Remy-signed divorce papers. His face darkened instantly as he grabbed the documents, clenching them tightly in his hand. With his other hand, he dialed my number. "The number you've dialed is unavailable. Please try again later." The cold, automated message echoed in the silent room. His face turned even more tense. My phone had been destroyed in the accident. There was no way for me to receive his calls now. Watching his growing anxiety filled me with a strange mix of sadness and irony. He had once been so indifferent to my very existence, ignoring my life and my pain. And now, after my disappearance, he was so desperate to find me. It was cruelly ironic. He stared at his phone for a moment before typing another message. "Stop being stubborn. Come back when you're done throwing your tantrum." Reading those words, an indescribable wave of sorrow washed over me. When would he finally realize that I was gone forever? The next morning, Nestor brought food prepared by Aunt Wang and headed to the hospital to visit Pamela. "Brother Nestor." Pamela's face lit up the moment she saw him. "I brought your favorite dishes. Eat more so you can recover quickly," he said gently as he arranged the dishes on the table. Watching him care for her with such tenderness made my non-existent chest tighten painfully. Oh, right, I shouldn't even be feeling anything anymore. But the sadness still burned. Nestor remembered what Pamela liked to eat, but had he ever cared about my preferences?
No.
I hated spring onions and couldn't handle spicy food, but he had once chosen a Sichuan restaurant simply because Pamela loved spicy cuisine. They had chatted and laughed together while I silently forced down a few bites, trying not to gag from the overwhelming oil and spice. Pamela had mocked me with a false smile, saying, "Sister Sabi, Don't you like what Brother Nestor ordered? Or do you just not want to eat with me? Nestor glanced at me coldly, indifferent to my discomfort. That night, I ended up in the emergency room with severe stomach pain. I stayed in the hospital for half a month. His only comment back then was, "How can you be so delicate? Pammy's perfectly fine." His words had cut me deeper than any knife. I snapped back to reality as I saw Pamela now pouting, acting like a spoiled child. "Bro, can you feed me?" "I don't want to move," she whined, fluttering her long lashes. Nestor smiled but hesitated, as if remembering something. "Pammy, you're an adult. You shouldn't always rely on me to feed you." Pamela froze, clearly not expecting his refusal. My mind flashed back to the argument Nestor and I had once had. "What do you take me for? And what do you take Pamela for?" I had shouted at him. He coldly replied, "Pammy and I grew up together. She's like family to me. Sabrina, stop being unreasonable." Family? Yet he allowed no boundaries between them. I had cried. If it weren't for saving him that night, none of this would have happened. Back then, he had been momentarily flustered, saying, "Don't cry. I'll be more careful in the future." Could it be that he remembered my words now? Was that why he rejected Pamela's request? My heart stirred with a brief glimmer of hope, but I quickly pushed it away. "Nestor never loved Muhat, did it matter? Bro Nesto, are you getting tired of me?" Pamela pouted, her eyes filling with tears. Nestor panicked, quickly grabbing a handkerchief to wipe her tears. No, don't get emotional. It's bad for your heart. I'll never tire of you." Pamela continued crying as she nestled into his chest. Nestor stiffened, but didn't push her away. Instead, he gently patted her back. Watching Pamela act so pitiful while using my heart to charm Nestor filled me with hatred. She had destroyed my life and my child, yet she still had the audacity to seduce him with my stolen heart beating inside her. "Brother Nesto is the best," Pamela whispered sweetly. "If Sabrina hadn't seduced you, you would have married me, right?" Nestor remained silent for a moment. Pamela's voice grew softer, more manipulative. "There's no if. But now, Sabrina's gone. My heart problem is cured. I won't be a burden to you anymore." She clutched his sleeve like a fragile child seeking reassurance. "Would you be with me now?" Nestor sighed deeply. "Since I promised your parents I'd take care of you, I won't break that promise. Don't worry. Even if I'm married, I won't abandon you." I sneered bitterly. Pamela leaned into him, pretending to be obedient, but her eyes sparkled with triumph and jealousy. After leaving the hospital, Nestor went straight to the office. As he passed reception, he suddenly stopped. "Have you seen my wife these past 2 days?" he asked. The receptionist thought for a moment. "No, sir." Just as Nestor was about to leave, the receptionist suddenly recalled something. "Sir, your wife did call yesterday morning." Nestor turned back sharply. "What?" "She said she couldn't reach you and asked if you had arrived at the office. You hadn't arrived yet, so I told her no." I heard this and remembered clearly. After receiving Pamela's call, I had tried to reach Nestor. His phone was off, so I called the office to check if he was there before I headed to Senoa Street. Nestor's face clouded with confusion. "I didn't get her call yesterday morning," he muttered, his mind racing. He pulled out his phone again, checking the unanswered messages, growing increasingly unsettled. "Until when will this continue?" he sighed, frustration thick in his voice. Then he picked up the intercom. "Secretary Lee, book a restaurant for tonight. A table for 2. It's our wedding anniversary." Hearing his words, I stared at him in disbelief. The moment the police entered the room, Pamela's face drained of color. Her wide eyes darted between Nestor and the officers as panic began to ripple across her usually calm features. She had never expected this. For so long, she had hidden behind her sweet, fragile facade, playing the helpless victim. But tonight, all of her carefully constructed lies were crumbling around her. "You called the police?" she gasped, her voice trembling. Nestor's gaze was cold, devoid of the warmth he once offered her. "Of course I did," he replied with a tone that was almost chilling in its calmness. Did you really think you could murder my wife and get away with it? Pamela, you underestimated me. But don't worry, I won't let you die so easily. After all, the heart that beats inside you still belongs to Sabrina. As Nestor's words pierced the air, Pamela's lips quivered, and she finally broke down. Her tears, once so effective in gaining Nestor's sympathy, now carried no weight. The officers quickly approached her, reciting her rights while placing cold metal cuffs around her slender wrists. No, no. Brother Nestor, please. I love you, she cried out, struggling in vain as they began to lead her away. Nestor stood still, watching her with nothing but hatred in his eyes. You never loved anyone but yourself, he whispered. You destroyed the only person who ever loved me. I hovered nearby, watching everything unfold with an indescribable mix of grief and bitterness. My death, my suffering, my child's death, it had all been for nothing. But at least now, the truth had surfaced. As Pamela was dragged from the room, she screamed desperately, You'll regret this, Nestor. You'll regret it for the rest of your life. But Nestor didn't flinch. He simply closed his eyes, as if trying to block out the nightmare he had helped create. After the officers left, silence consumed the room. Nestor remained standing, motionless, his head bowed, hands clenched tightly into fists. The weight of everything he had just uncovered pressed heavily onto his shoulders. I could see the pain written across his face, the regret, the guilt, the heartbreak, but none of it could bring me back. He had chosen not to believe me when I needed him the most. He had let Pamela's lies blind him, and now, only after losing me forever, did he finally realize the truth. Hours passed, yet Nestor remained frozen in that same spot. Only the sound of his uneven breathing broke the heavy stillness. Suddenly, his phone rang, vibrating loudly on the nightstand, snapping him out of his trance. He picked it up, but didn't answer. Instead, he stared at the screen as his hands began to tremble. It was a message from the hospital to report confirming that Pamela would remain in custody pending trial, and that her heart transplant records would be fully investigated. Nestor's lips curled into a bitter smile. It's too late, Sabrina, he whispered, his voice breaking, but at least you can finally rest. As dawn broke, Nestor stood up and walked out of the hospital room. Outside, the morning sun was rising, casting a warm glow over the city. The world continued to turn as if nothing had happened, as if I had never existed. He drove aimlessly for hours, his mind filled with fragments of memories, the first time we met in school, how I had silently admired him, how he had saved me from bullies, how fate had thrown us together years later under such twisted circumstances. He remembered the night of the hotel, when everything had begun. He recalled my timid smile, my tears, my desperate attempts to maintain our fragile marriage, my silent endurance as Pamela hovered between us. And then he remembered the moment he lost our child, the night when I had pleaded for him to believe me, but he chose Pamela's lies over my truth. Guilt gnawed at him like a hungry beast, devouring what little was left of his soul. Finally, he parked his car by the seaside, stepping out as the wind blew fiercely, tousling his hair. He stood there, staring at the endless waves crashing against the shore, imagining the ashes Pamela had so cruelly scattered into the ocean. I'm sorry, Sabrina, he whispered into the wind. I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. His knees buckled, and he collapsed onto the sand, sobbing uncontrollably. For the first time since my death, he allowed himself to break completely. His cries echoed against the waves, but no one was there to hear him. Only the sea witnessed his collapse, just as it had received my scattered ashes. I floated above, watching the man I once loved, the man who had once sworn to protect me, but failed in every possible way. And yet, as much as I wanted to hate him, a part of me still ached for him. Because despite everything, I had once truly loved Nestor. But now, all that remained was regret. He sat there for hours, until the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of crimson and gold, as if nature itself was mourning with him. Finally, as the night approached, Nestor whispered, his voice barely audible, "If only I could turn back time." But time was merciless. Time had stolen me from him, stolen our child, stolen every chance he might have had to make things right. And now, all he had left was emptiness. The man who once had everything now had nothing but the haunting memory of the woman he had lost forever. What Pamela said had probably been true all along. She had arranged everything so meticulously that not even my body could be found. But Nestor refused to accept it. He searched frantically, like a man possessed, desperate to locate my remains. If I could speak to him, I would have told him to stop. Delayed affection was as worthless as weeds. He never truly loved me while I was alive, so why more me now? His regret came too late, and I watched from the void with bitter detachment. Then one day, while rummaging through his study, Nestor stumbled upon an old photo album. When he opened it, the first page stunned him. It was my student ID photo from my freshman year, the one I had lost so long ago. I was equally stunned. I had never imagined that picture would end up with him. Staring at the photo in a daze, Nestor whispered, "Sabi, I'm sorry. If I had treated you better, if I hadn't looked after Pamela so much, giving her false hope, everything would have been different." His eyes were red as he gently placed the photo and my star-shaped pendant into a small box, holding it tightly as if trying to preserve what little was left of me. "You probably never knew this, but I've always loved you," he continued, voice trembling. "Even though you didn't love me, I kept you by my side out of fear you would leave. So I kept testing you, hurting you. And in the end, I was the one who drove you to your death. I was wrong." His whispered confession stunned me. He had loved me, but his way of loving was so twisted that it ultimately destroyed me. Still, I felt nothing, not anger, not pity, just emptiness. Nestor then bought a quiet plot of land where he buried the small box, creating a cenotaph for me. Every day, he visited the grave with fresh lilies, sitting there for hours, drinking and talking to me as though I could hear him. And I did. Over time, the truth unraveled fully. Nestor had long known I wasn't the one who drugged him that night. He hadn't even been fully affected by the drug. He realized it was me in the room, but still chose to let it happen, convincing himself he would face me after calming down. But when I disappeared, he panicked and searched for me for a month until he found me in the hospital, ready to terminate my pregnancy. That desperation had driven him to marry me. As for Pamela pushing me down the stairs, he truly believed it was accidental, blinded by loyalty to the promise he had made to her dying parents. There had never been an engagement between them, despite what Pamela claimed. He had only sought to protect her fragile heart. Yet, no matter how complicated his reasons were, the damage he inflicted on me was real and unforgivable. Eventually, Pamela and the hitman she hired were captured and sentenced to life in prison. Using his connections, Nestor ensured Pamela's prison life was miserable. She tried countless times to contact him, begging for forgiveness, but he never responded. Not long after, she ended her life in prison. The day he received the news, Nestor was at my grave, gently wiping my headstone, as usual. When the call came, his voice was cold.
"She's dead.
The heart she stole will finally follow her." Later that day, as he was driving aimlessly, lost in thought, a speeding truck ran a red light and crashed directly into his car. Just before the impact, I heard him murmur softly, "This is enough. See you in the next life, Sabi." His hands left the steering wheel, and his eyes closed in acceptance. He died instantly. Watching from above, I saw my own translucent body growing fainter. I knew my time had come. If there was a next life, I only wished for a peaceful existence, one without Nestor, without pain. But when I opened my eyes again, I was back in the hotel bathroom, staring into the mirror. The same hotel, the same moment. Outside, I heard the familiar voice. "The drug is ready. Come quickly. The room card is in the slot." It was happening again. I had been reborn. But this time, I wouldn't make the same choices. I peeked outside, confirming that the people had left. Nestor lay semi-conscious on the bed, just like before. But unlike my past self, I quietly opened the door and walked away without hesitation, leaving everything behind. In this life, I would no longer be tangled in his complicated web. I would live for myself, freely and peacefully.